In 2018, a cataclysmic event of unprecedented proportions extinguished virtually all life in the northern continent. An accidental reduction of postal charges of a concept called media rate allowed the sudden and enormous flood of a substance called books across the continent. The overwhelming amount of books originating from a place called Amazon literally buried alive the entire population of the northern continent. In less than a day, the most advanced civilization of the ancient world had perished. People around the world had long forgotten about the lost continent, but the discovery of a place called Empire State 600 years later piqued people's imagination. Excitement ran wild about what lay beneath the encrusted, fossilized surface of the northern continent, but no new discoveries were made, and the public's fascination waned. 800 years later, a significant discovery was made by teenagers hiking in the northwestern region of the landmass. A sign almost 40 feet high referred to something called a microsoft. The rest of the sign has been lost to history, so we may never know what was so small, yet soft. More than 2,000 years after the event, scholar Thaddeus Nobody began researching the few findings that had been recorded, and discovered a fissure in the crust that had opened as a result of an earthquake. So he chartered an expedition to a long-rumored place called Gate City. Upon exploring the fissure, Professor Nobody discovered an entombed building of sorts called Sechul, with many rooms. Most of the rooms had collapsed under the crushing weight above, but one room, the largest in the Sechul, was protected by stacks of something called EOG tests. The sign, still visible above the door, reads Media Center. Professor Nobody set up his portable spotlight and ventured inside with his cameraman. What he found was startling and amazing. This media center seemed to contain rows and rows of those legendary books. These, however, had not covered the continent, but instead were preserved, with their use and purpose yet to be discovered. Professor Nobody immediately began to speculate on the functions of the books. They seemed to be named in bold colors on the outside, and with its directions for use on the inside, written in an ancient language, whose base sounds have been approximated by using a language application called YouTube. Professor Nobody supposed that the soft, flexible books, which he named limber leaves, were obviously meant to adorn the body, or cover the head to protect from the artificial sunlight on the ceiling. These books, rows and rows of them meticulously organized in something called Dewey, were obviously armor pieces of various sizes, which Professor Nobody called stiff sides, adorned with taunting images, or as a record of fallen foes. The professor noticed that in several books were hieroglyphics of people wearing such armor, and in others pictures of the wild beasts that roamed the area for which protection would be needed. These two types of books were purely for the benefit of a select few, and almost certainly do not contain the collected recorded history of the populace. The media center was certainly a place for people to prepare for battle against their beastly adversaries, with evidence that this eventually gave way to the fierce battles with other warriors. Some books, called Graphic Novels, are embellished with images depicting the real life of the citizens of Gate City. These books obviously transcend the need for sophisticated language and are most likely never seen by the youth, only the enlightened adults. The keeper of this media center was a person called Media Spec. The Media Spec would keep records of battles waged and won, and would record odds and wagers using the device called Computer. Other computers around the room reveal that there may have been a vast network of computers connected together by a substance called interwebs and Wi-Fi, allowing media specs in other regions to also place bets on the outcomes of the battles. At a place called Checkout, the media spec used a device called Scanner. Scanner would emit a powerful red laser that would eradicate combatants who disgraced the sanctity of Media Center by not returning their armor pieces to the center. Here the media spec is at eternal rest, never knowing the outcome of the final battle. At the front of the media center, Professor Nobody found seating arrangements, obviously for the weary combatants to rest after battle, or to mentally prepare for an upcoming duel. Having so many seats around tables would be conducive to conversation and sharing of ideas. Stories of previous fighters that had become legends must have flourished. This seating area may have been used for more than just combat respite. There may have been a more creative outlet, one where interlocking blocks of many colors were assembled in the hopes of gaining favor with the opposite sex. Or maybe the creations were the start of a tiny universe. The blocks, fashioned in a sort of building or structure, now petrified, may at one time have been cushiony, lending credence to the existence of the Microsoft discovered earlier. A device called Sony HD, with its curved lens, probably allowed the viewer to see into this microscopic world. Creatures that inhabit this world are strange and unfathomable. Perhaps battles were waged there too. In the years since Professor Nobody's discovery, many more revelations have been made. Other scholars and adventure seekers have made their way to the room with vast shelves of books with their taunting images and enigmatic text. They have formed their own theories about what lies inside. But there may be secrets this space holds that may never be uncovered, making this a true media center of the mysteries.
While I am considered a scholar on the Media Center after my findings, I am by no means an expert. It amazes me that every time I go in I find new things, understand new ideas, and learn more about the ancient culture of Gate City. As my understanding of the language slowly builds, I find myself in awe of the ability of this civilization had to record their history. I have even found that I have made a couple of mistakes. I found that these books are not just used as armor, but as something to read while waiting for an adversary to make it to the battlefield. Fighters can improve themselves by learning about something new while waiting. They may find a book on cooking, or one about another media spec from a Black Lagoon, or about talking creatures whose names are Thing the First and Thing the Second, a name as obvious as one cat who resides in a hat. And then of course strap that book back on and take whatever blows his assailant may make. In addition, the spaces in the Media Center seem to be a place of socialization. Place perhaps of one where information learned inside a book can be conveyed to another, who may have information about another topic, perhaps one that may help in combat, such as figures that are hidden, or a man-spider. What I believe has happened is that these spaces don't necessarily have to do with the books. It is a collaborative environment, a vibrant place to problem solve, to attend to matters that may lie outside our normal places of instruction. They may educate without books, and be the best place to educate with them. Their computers may be a way to integrate conversation and partnership with people who are not even in the room, or even in the northern continent. They may have been ways to create these books, or even to be up to the minute about relevant topics of the day. These media specs would have to have been able to manage both these places, the books in the room, and these cyberspaces. Most importantly, and my greatest discovery, is that the media specs, or librarian as they may also be known, are the media center. Without them, the space is just a space. Strength without leverage is useless. And while that collection of information is the greatest strength, the librarian is the leverage. Over the last 14 years, I have found myself having to relearn what the people of Gate City already had because I did not have the advantage of a librarian to help direct me. My biggest shame is that we will never really know the true meaning behind what the media center of Gate City really meant to its inhabitants. Judging by its relative location in the building, it was the hub of all that happened there. It was the place where knowledge was kept, shared, and even created. Having lost all of that information, and more importantly the expertise of the media spec, means the civilization was all but extinct. As we learn more, we may just yet be able to bring it back from the dead.